we're looking at Bellwether by Connie Willis. It's a work of science fiction that was recommended to me by one of my viewers, and thank you so much, Timothy Collins. It was an excellent read and suggestion. On the back cover, Bellwether. Sandra Foster studies fads, from Barbie dolls to the grunge look, how they start and what they mean. Bennett O'Reilly is a chaos theorist studying monkey group behavior. They both work for the high-tech corporation Strangers until a misdelivered package brings them together. It's a moment of synchronicity, if not serendipity, which leads them into a chaotic system of their own, complete with a $1 million research grant, cafe latte, tattoos, and a series of unlucky coincidences that leaves Bennett monkeyless, funless, and nearly jobless. Sandra intercedes with a flock of sheep and an idea for a joint project. After all, what better animal to study both chaos theory and the herd mentality that so often characterizes human behavior. But scientific discovery is rarely straightforward and never simple, and Sandra and Bennett have to endure a series of setbacks, heartbreaks, dead ends, and disasters before they find their ultimate answer. I've never read about or studied chaos theory, so I enjoyed reading this book, which gives us a small taste of what that's about, and it'll be a subject that I'll be looking further into down the road, which I always appreciate when I come across a book, because I enjoy learning about, if you've seen any of my other videos, a variety of different subjects. And if you've ever read Barbara Shear's Refuse to Choose, that will completely make sense to you. And definitely if you're one of the scanners that she describes in her book. But back to Bellwether. Throughout the book, we take a look at different trends, as that's what Sandra's looking at to try and find an answer of when does something start, but more importantly, why does it take off at that particular point? It talks about chaos theory, and there's some interesting concepts there. People, I'm sure, have heard about the butterfly effect, how a butterfly in one location can impact a cyclone or such somewhere else. It's an interesting concept and definitely brings to mind how something doesn't have to be huge, like, say, Vesuvius exploding and burying Pompeii, to make a difference globally. It was an enjoyable read because, unlike some books, you don't figure things out in the first chapter. There's a lot of different twists and turns and maybes. The ending definitely comes as a surprise, and I'll leave it at that because I don't want to give away how things have unfolded and why things turned out the way that they did. I try to avoid giving away any spoilers because, of course, part of my purpose is to have people read the different books that I talk about for themselves, and I enjoy reading what their thoughts are about it afterwards. So I definitely try to avoid any type of spoilers with a book. The setup of the book was interesting because at the start of each chapter, she has a small paragraph about different trends throughout the world, whether she's talking about hairstyles or clothing. Some that particularly stood out for me, and yes, I always have my handy-dandy notes. On page 73, she talks about Anton Mesmer, which was interesting because he's come up in a number of my different readings, including a book called Dark Dimensions by Colin Wilson, who covers Anton Mesmer in an entire chapter of that book. On page 187, she talks about mood rings, which were a big thing in 1975. Yes, I definitely had one and I remember them, and comically, I still have one today. On page 227, she talks about the Rubik's Cube, and that was big in 1980 to 1981. Yes, I had a Rubik's Cube, and I remember trying to work through it like so many other people. I actually did solve it. was also fascinating because when I was working as an educational assistant, one of our student placements who was working in the resource room with me could solve the cube in about a minute, and he rarely looked at it. It was fascinating. I still don't know how he did it. On page 239, I have no doubt there are some people who would disagree with her description here. But tattoos, 1691, self-mutilation fad, which first became popular in Europe in the 1600s when explorers brought the practice back from the South Seas. The fad recurred as an upper-class craze in the Edwardian era. Jenny Jerome, Winston Churchill's mother, had a snake tattooed around her wrist. Tattooing became popular again in World War II, this time among servicemen and especially sailors. Again in the 60s as part of the hippie movement, and yet again in the late 80s. Tattooing has the disadvantage of being a passing fad with permanent results. I would say, based on the number of tattoos that I've seen watching various channels across YouTube, along with the number of people that I know who have tattoos, I'm not sure I'd describe that as a fad. There it is. On page 147, she talks about chain letters, and they were in the spring of 1935. Again, it's definitely something that continued because I remember getting those, and they were, of course, handwritten, and I hated those things. You have to send it to so many people, and if you don't, bad things will happen. Chain letters are still around. They just happen on social media now where people don't even type the thing out. They just copy paste and send it out to people, which is why I'm actually quite happy that I'm not on Facebook anymore because I hated getting those things. A few times I sent them along myself, unfortunately. I don't mind if it's something to cheer up someone's day. In other words, it's just sending a poem or such thing to somebody. But these chain letters that, ooh, you got to do this in this much time, just irritate the crap out of me. On page 245, so near the end of the book, she talks about Ouija boards, and they were from 1917 to 1918. Now again, if you watch any paranormal channels, Ouija boards are definitely around. There are people who play with them, think of them as toys. Other people think they're just something with an alphabet. I leave that up to different people to decide. This page made me chuckle because in a future video, I'll actually be talking about my grade 13 geography culminating activity. I actually had a very open-minded geography teacher who allowed me to do my project on the occult and Ouija boards and what was going on in our particular area. So it connected my interest in the paranormal along with my studies and interest in geography. I'll share more about that project in an upcoming video. On page 245, Connie Willis says, Ouija board, 1917 to 18, psychic game fad that purports to tell the future. Players push a planchette around a board with letters and numbers, spelling out answers to questions. Originated either in Maryland in the 1880s with C.W. Kennard or William and Isaac Fuld, or in Europe in the 1850s, but did not become a fad until America entered World War I. Recurs every time there's a war, popular during World War II and the Korean conflict. Hit its highest number of sales in 1966 to 67 during the Vietnam War. That paragraph is interesting because she doesn't talk about it as being a spirit communication as so many people do. According to her paragraph, it'd be like tarot cards to read the future. I've always heard of Ouija boards described as something to make contact with those who have passed on. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think Ouija boards are something for divination, telling the future? Are they to contact spirits? Are they something that should just be left alone? Let me know. Bellwether the novel was an enjoyable read. It keeps you going right up until the end, as I said, because she doesn't give away what's going to happen and what the final result is. And there are a few things that come up. You're pretty sure things aren't going to work out for a lot of different reasons. There are many different twists and turns throughout the book, and she has what I found to be a very enjoyable writing style. I liked the fads she talked about at the beginning of each chapter. There were a lot of different things to learn about. She also must have spent quite a bit of time doing research for this book, because, as I say, every chapter starts with a different fad, the years, and a description. It'd be nice if other people did that much research before putting out content. Just saying. Bellwether is a book that I would definitely recommend if you enjoy science fiction, if you enjoy writers like H.G. Wells or Jules Verne. I think you will like Bellwether. You can do as I did, check out your public library to see if they have a copy and give it a try. If you enjoyed this video or found it to be of benefit, be sure to give that like button a little tickle. If you enjoy content about books, summaries, comments, me going off on a tangent and coming back to the book, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you know when I upload content that may be of interest to you. Because on this channel, I also do videos about my silly cats and nature. Until next time, happy reading.